Okay, I just had this idea right now, but it's a good idea. Some of you, I assume, are photographers. You want to know how to photograph cool things. One of those things is lightning. Lightning, to me, is one of the most fascinating things to photograph because it's really, really hard. But actually, it's not really. Every time I show somebody a picture of lightning, they're like, whoa, how did you get that? So I thought perhaps today, while there's a really, really big thunderstorm over here, would be a great day to show you guys just how to do that. It's actually probably like the biggest storm I've seen so far this year. First step, you need to know exactly where the thunderstorm is. There's a lot of clouds in this one shot, right? So where are you going to see lightning in that whole thing? You need to have a radar. There are many radar apps on the App Store and on the Android stuff, Google Play, all that stuff. But the one I would recommend for Apple anyways is the MyRadar app. It's pretty good, and it also tells you future So there are two basic ways of photographing lightning. One way is offensive and the other way is defensive. Pretty straightforward. One is head-on. That's when you're in front of the storm. That's offensive. And one is when you're to the side of the storm. There's defensive. Defensive is safer, but offensive provides better shots. Right now what I'm doing is offensive. The storm is coming right towards me. For offensive, for sure, do know that this is really dangerous. It is. Seriously. I'm not joking. Not being able to have metal is really difficult. So I use things to prop my phone. Instead of tripods, I use things like electrical tape, which is a little safer. Then I don't need to be holding things. If you want video, you can do 4K normal, which is kind of boring, I think, because it's just lightning striking. But you can also do slow motion. By the way, this is all for phones. If you have a professional camera, I'll get to that in a second. For videotaping on phones, personally, I think 1080p 240 frames is the best because you get slow motion and it's pretty cool. But video on phones just doesn't quite cut it for videotaping lightning. If you have a professional camera to videotape lightning, then I've already given you the instructions, and set up your camera and be really safe. Have like rubber or electrical tape or something again, and do not touch that camera. Also, things like trash bags and stuff, put them over your camera so they don't get wet and break, because there is probably rain. And if there's hail, just get out. It's really dangerous to be driving around after a hailstorm. I can tell you that by experience. Videotaping with phones, it's cool, but it's hard because the quality isn't as great. For taking a photo, honestly, it's easier than it sounds. Everybody is so... Holy crap. Sorry, there's electrical tape. I was fooling with it. Everybody's so surprised that I can get these really good photos, but honestly, there's two ways. And one way is by taking a live photo. The second way, which is my favorite, take a burst. Now, it's time for me to demonstrate. This storm is getting bigger and closer, which is great. Okay. So this is 4K, 60 frames per second. So now let's start recording. Hopefully something shows up soon. Oh, wow. Look at that. Let's just zoom in a little bit more. Wow. Jesus, these butterflies. So you see how easy that is, especially when it's an active storm. I've already gotten 3 that I know of, that I've seen. Here's the trick. I'm zoomed in all the way now, and I can zoom in even more in post, which I might actually do for this. And if I get a strike here, the quality is okay, but it could be better. So now here's slow motion, which is 1080p. That's HD, 240 frames per second. As you can see, the quality is definitely not as good. But again, if we get a shot here real quick, there's a freaking butterfly. It's gonna piss me off. So, as you can tell, it's, again, cool, but from this far distance, it's not great. Now, if you have a professional camera, it's easier. If you have, like, really good lenses and stuff, honestly, you can get greater shots. This is for the amateur pros, the ones like me, who don't have professional cameras. The only camera I have is an iPhone, and an iPad, if you count that. Now, on to what I think is honestly, it's kind of easier. It's harder, because you have to go through and completely delete all these photos and make sure they're off, because they're just boring still shots. But then there's ones that have the lightning, and I'll go into greater detail on what you can do with those too. But I will start with teaching you how to shoot with a live photo. And the trick to it is, once you see a shot, take a photo. How live photos work is it takes a whole bunch of photos and makes a little video, a 3-second video. So as long as you can hit that button about a second or less after the strike, you will most likely get it. But as shown by the next screen record, it's not as good. The resolution isn't as good as most people would want it, because the phone is just going to run out of battery if it's taking high quality photos all the time and deleting them right away to make small videos that are only used sometimes. So then here's the second way of getting photos, and it's personally my favorite, even though a lot more work goes into it, but you can do a lot more with it. Here's the pros and cons about bursts. The major pro about bursts is that in the allotted 600 photos that Apple allows you to take in one single burst of photos, if you don't capture anything in those 600 photos, you can delete them all at once and just be done with them. The bad thing is, if you do happen to capture some in the 600 photos or less, then you have to review every single photo, which sounds bad, but in reality is not as stressful as it seems. You'll see those lightning strikes pretty easily, especially with the light contrast and stuff on an iPhone. Now, if you're using Samsung or anything else, I could not tell you anything about those operating systems, but I do assume that they are pretty similar. Now I'll demonstrate. Looking through these photos is not as hard as it sounds. We'll take that select button up there, and we'll just go through the photos one by one, and you see how I'm scrolling? You see how easy you see the flash. And you just click on those photos, done. And you say keep only 3 favorites, and it deletes all of the other ones. And it keeps those 3 that are pretty great. It's time to go. One thing you don't want to do is get stuck. Woo! What? What?
You should take the longboard and go across these.
No.